Vibe In podcast, everybody's favorite podcast in the whole entire world. I'm Ryan, here's Jason, and we're joined by Matthew from Trycolour Studios.
Hello.
How are you?
Hello. I'm feeling all right. How are you two doing?
Pretty good.
Good.
I've just expelled all the energy that I possibly could muster.
You've been building that energy up for a while now.
Yeah, we're both very manic at the moment.
You are. I'm fine. I'm mentally stable all the time.
Sure.
On that note, before we get started, I just want to acknowledge the custodians of the land, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. I think it's very important to acknowledge and understand that we get to come here to the podcast, and obviously the venue we do poetry, come here every week and on lands that are that have been stolen, where sovereignty's never been ceded. Australia's the only country in the Commonwealth that hasn't signed a treaty with their First Nations people. I think we're just very lucky to be able to talk, tell our stories and express ourselves when so many First Nations people have had their words and stories erased and deleted throughout history and even up until today. And also I just want to acknowledge the Palawa people of Lutruwita, which is the First Nations people of Tasmania, where I unfortunately grew up.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Annoying.
Matthew, you've been working with us on a bit of a dream come true kind of series that we've been sitting on for years, since kind of Vibe Unit started. I've had this in the back of my head. I want to do our own version of Tiny Desk, and that's what we're trying to do. And Tones. It's called Tones. Yeah, fantastic. Well
done.
If you should know that by now if you're on this YouTube channel.
Avid listener, watcher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of wanted to start with how did you get into filming bands? How did you get into doing this?
Filming bands?
Yeah.
So the first one was my brother's band in the pre-COVID era.
Yeah, right.
Oh.
If you can remember that far back.
The forgotten times.
I can barely remember last week.
And so my brother and I were in a band together with a couple other folks, like one of those Facebook groups that we need a bass player, we need a drummer.
Yeah.
And then that kind of went away because the singer had to go back to the UK.
Mm-hmm.
But my brother and the guitar player struck up a friendship and struck up another band.
Fantastic.
And they played a gig at the Howler.
Cool.
And they were like, can you take some photos?
Yeah.
And so I made a gig video, a
sick.
full-length gig video, just two cameras.
Yeah.
And then didn't do it again for maybe 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
Basically what struck my sort of drive to make these is I wasn't really feeling satisfied with what I was doing editing in the corporate world.
Sure.
That
makes sense.
I want to make feature films and write scripts and all that, and that wasn't happening either because they don't just sort of give you money for that.
Yeah.
Willy-nilly.
Yeah. We're not trying to write movies, but we certainly know the lack of money in the arts.
Yeah.
It's too well.
The lack of money until maybe there's just too much money.
Yeah, 100%. I look forward to losing my mind due to wealth at some point. Can't wait for it.
Yeah, I would love to do that. It was basically a need to just sort of get some satisfying projects made. And I love music. I'm a musician myself. Been playing since I was like 9.
Yeah.
It was just sort of random. A friend was like, hey, I saw this band with 3 vocalists that harmonize the entire time. They're called Empress.
Mm-hmm.
And I just messaged them saying, hey, do you want me to film you?
Okay.
And they were like, that's crazy. Do you want us to pay you? And I was like, no.
I mean, I'd love money, but also no.
Yeah.
Nah. Well, basically, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to do a bad job.
Yeah.
Sure.
I did it once with the brothers band, but and it turned out great. It looked great, and I was very proud of it. But I didn't know if I could do it again.
Yeah.
Didn't know.
Yeah.
But I did that, loved it, and was really proud of the project. And just had that bug bit me.
Yeah.
And it became a bit of an addiction.
Yeah.
And I sort of gave myself all right, just do this for a year. Don't worry about making it a thing you get paid for or becomes your main job or whatever. Just do it because you enjoy it.
Yeah.
And just whenever I'm feeling down about I wish I got paid more, I just focus on that but I love doing it. At the end of a gig, I feel so great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Having that interest in scripted film and actually making feature-length films, obviously a very different process than shooting live video or a gig where the gig is happening. You've got 45 minutes to capture everything you need.
Yeah.
And if you fuck something up, there is no take two.
There's no take two.
How have you found, that kind of that entering into the chaos? I find it really interesting watching the photographers that we work with as well. Like there's... I've seen people like throwing themselves onto the ground to make sure they get exactly the right shot in that second. Do you find yourself entering like a bit of a flow state doing this kind of stuff?
100%. Flow state, odd amount of like confidence that I don't sort of have in my like daily life. And it's I suppose the whole thing about like wanting to be in scripted work and going into this like sort of live environment. My experience as like a corporate editor and shooter and all that, it's all based on that. Like you've only got the moment to capture this and there's no going back. So I was pretty comfortable with that, like committing to what we get.
In the corporate space, that's the same kind of
That's the same kind of space because like they only have money to shoot for one day.
Sure.
You can't go back when you're like, I would love to get this kind of shot of you using the product or whatever.
Yeah.
I also worked in reality TV for
right.
Oh, interesting.
right out of uni.
Okay.
And so that's that whole pipeline is built around like just shoot, and you can just make edits entertaining from a wealth of material.
Yeah, right.
Even if it's like not necessarily the most cost-effective way to shoot something.
Yeah.
But also it is because time is money, and so you're just budgeting 3 days at this pet store or whatever.
Yeah.
Would you say that was to me? It sounds would be kind of boring in a way if you're just told to shoot everything, and just sort of. Is it something you can kind of not quite switch your brain off, but is it more of a?
I'm sure there's some people that get into that like. This is what I'm doing. I'm just getting a wealth of material. Doesn't need to be A+ material 100% of the time. But I think you'll find most sort of camera operators, in the same way as photographers, they get on the floor to get the shot.
Yeah.
They want 100% of that material to be A+.
Yeah.
In terms of what I do at like gigs and stuff, that's why I've got all these extra cameras and all of that. Many more cameras than people usually expect to bring. Mainly because it's like, I know I'm not going to get 100% A+ material when I'm reframing or changing lenses or whatever. But I know that a 60% shot over there is going to be good for 5 seconds.
Yeah. And great for glitches.
Absolutely.
I've done very little video editing, but the few times when I edited the first tones, having the second camera, even though it was a very similar shot, but saved my ass in a few points where things completely fell apart. I was like, oh, thank Christ we had that.
Yeah.
Otherwise it would have been a nightmare.
Well, you film the crowd for a solid 3 minutes and put that anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Has it changed your perspective on watching some of your favorite films or anything like that? Like, has it changed your perspective on filmmaking? Do you think the day when you get into that industry and you are getting paid the big Hollywood budgets to do these things, do you think this is going to carry forward?
I hope so. I do often think about like all this new music I'm being exposed to.
Yeah.
And I love films that have like great soundtracks.
Yeah.
So that's like a hidden sort of ambition to be like, I'm going to find all these great Melbourne artists and I'll make the Melbourne movie.
Sure.
Ooh.
And its soul will be this place, whatever that story ends up being about.
I mean, Melbourne music doco would obviously be on the cards at some stage.
I keep trying to like create ideas around that, and it's because you got to make it worth watching for someone that isn't just mates with the people in the band.
Yeah, for sure.
So just I've got all this material, and I know all these bands who I think would be great to be in a documentary, or even like a short documentary.
But there needs to be a through line.
Through line, something that's interesting,
Yeah.
Like I just saw the Oasis documentary at IMAX last night.
Right.
And it's just about like the golden years in the 90s and stuff.
Yeah.
But if you didn't know Oasis, you've watched that and you go, I get it. They were the biggest band in the world for 10 minutes.
Oh, okay. Right. So that's even if you don't know, that's still an interesting tale anyway. Yeah.
And it's like got character arcs. They started in the council estates on the Dole and they ended up getting like millions of dollars in their bank account through just being themselves. Like
Yeah.
that's a story. But like if I'm just sort of putting together a bunch of clips from these gigs I'm filming and
Yeah, for sure.
little interviews and stuff, that's not really super compelling.
Yeah.
As much as I would love to do it and say I've made a documentary.
Yeah, of course.
I think it'd be a small group of individuals. But
But yeah, if it's something more broader about like the Melbourne music scene, you know,
Yeah.
what does Melbourne sound like?
Yeah.
Tones.
Yes. But you need to have that. Even just thinking of promoting artists, I think is the hardest part for promoting. I mean, we're getting all this footage. We're getting fantastic footage, fantastic audio, having a great time, and then putting up. You shot my album launch, and I've put that up, and I promoted a few videos, and they got some views. Thanks for promotion. But otherwise, it's kind of hard to promote this thing to people that like. I need to communicate a story to you really, really quickly. Otherwise, it's like, cool. Here's another artist, and here's another little.
There's another underground story from some underground artists or something that haven't made it yet, but really working hard. Sort of,
how many people are putting up reels or what have you? Like, I'll show you some behind the scenes. Here's the real story behind my ass. You're a bedroom producer. Yeah, that's
it's visually
good
very
story.
interesting.
Yeah,
but but if you think of the biggest artists in the world, like Childish Gambino or something, everyone just kind of knows bits and pieces of his story. You know, he was comedian, comedic actor, writer, rose through those ranks and became like a Renaissance man.
Yeah.
And we all just sort of know that without actually like looking it up. So like, what's that? What's the equivalent of that
in Melbourne?
Yeah.
I would watch a documentary on Amrutha, on Amrutha's life.
Yeah, she's pretty great.
Actually, I can see that.
That could be not even about the music.
Yeah,
Just,
100%.
DJ Linguini.
Yeah, Dr. Linguini.
Dr. Linguini,
Dr.
sorry.
Linguini. She's on a new character arc.
That would be.
I once had like a 30-minute conversation about aliens with her.
Oh, 30 minutes.
Only 30.
Those are rookie numbers. You got to bump those up.
I love it because like I don't believe like many conspiracy theories or any probably, but like I love someone that's like, all right, I know this is going to sound ridiculous, but let me tell you what's going to happen in 2027.
Yeah, I get really easily frustrated by conspiracy theorists. I will talk to Amrutha about conspiracy theories all goddamn day because it's a strong belief, but it's also a self-awareness.
Yeah,
they're like, hey, I believe this, you believe this. Let's talk our shit out.
But
like,
it's not the getting berated from the other side when you're like, that sounds far fetched. It's like, well, you just don't do your research. Blah, blah, blah. Here's these really horrible MS Paint websites that you need to go to with big flashing red buttons and stuff, and made by Greg.
Yeah.
Made by Greg.
Greg 55 and lives in a shed. Greg in a shed.
Greg in the shed.
There's the documentary for you. Greg in a shed.
Greg in the shed. What's his story? What's he doing in that shed? Does he sleep in there? Does it have a bath?
If aliens turn out to be real, I will very quickly tip my hat to Amrutha. Mad props. Mad props.
If you're talking about aliens now, like genuinely, and it turns out to be true, I'm very impressed. You're like talking to Einstein.
But then I think that goes into a subculture. Like, what type of aliens will they be? Because aliens exist. Cool. If you believe that, that's fine. And then say, what type of aliens do you believe exist? Are they just?
If the little green men, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, the ones with the big eyes, the Area 51 or whatever.
How the fuck did they nail? If it looks anything like that, and you do still see like some, let's just get into debunking conspiracy theories. But if you still to this day, you'll see like grainy shots or footage of like a little grey man, and it's like that looks like the guy from the 50s and the 40s. That's what they were painting in the day. So like, how would they get that right back then? It's so stupid.
Yeah, and how in 2024 you don't have a camera good enough to take a good photo?
100%.
I'm like an iPhone or like a Samsung. You could take it half decent.
Most smartphones have 4K cameras.
Yeah. Yes. Like, no. I had the old the ones in like early 2000s.
I carry a flip phone just for this. Yeah.
One of the old cameras that you had like the wristbands on the Nikons. You see the girls used to take them out all the time. Yeah, those ones. So, I took it on that one.
Little point and shoot.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Right.
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. What type of aliens would they be? That's the next question.
I don't know if they're aliens, but I just saw a trailer today about Arcadian This new horror movie that just came out.
I haven't heard of it.
It's Nick Cage is in it.
Oh, I've seen Nick Cage's face on a bus or something.
That's for Arcadian. And the monsters are fantastic, brilliant. They're really janky. Well, they're very.
Are they film janky or they look janky?
They do one thing that's really janky, and it's kind of it's not a spoiler. Watch the film. I haven't watched the film. It makes me want to watch the film.
It's in the trailer, so it's
how could you know a spoiler if you haven't seen the film?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm just trained now to I say that before I say anything.
Trailer spoiler.
Trailer spoiler. They're quite ape-like, but then their heads snap open and close unnervingly fast, like tick, 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 and it freaks me out. And they're big, so it's physically impossible. And there's a snap. It's still the sound of, like, you know when a large dog snaps its jaws, it has that kind of clacking kind of sound where it's really wet at the same time. It's still that sound, but really fast. It gave me the heebie-jeebies. No, thank you so much.
Give you the ick.
I think Nick Cage can handle it though.
Oh, if anyone can.
Yeah. If anyone can, Nick. I keep calling Nick Face. Nick Cage Face. Can. Nicholas Face.
To go on. Oh yeah.
I was going to bring it back to tones or something.
Yeah, sure.
We've been talking about aliens for a while.
I wanted to ask though if music is kind of been a bit of a theme and a through line for your work at the moment. Do you have a favorite soundtrack? If we're
that's big.
You've got
off the top of your head.
10 seconds to answer.
Oh God. Well, I'll probably say The Bear. You know that TV show?
Yeah,
that's got a great soundtrack.
Yeah,
still haven't seen it. Need to watch it.
Oh, it's excellent.
Well worth it. Well worth it.
Okay.
It's very good.
It tickles my hospitality.
I do like animals
real nicely.
But I'll also say Hans Zimmer. You can't go wrong with Hans Zimmer.
Sure. Yeah.
But that's a different kind of score.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What's your favorite?
He did June, right?
He did.
Yeah. That was the most. I didn't realize until like when the movie ends and you realize that you've had that playing for 2.5 hours. The most exhausting, brilliant soundtrack, but one of the most exhausting soundtracks I've ever encountered in my life is just being bombarded constantly.
Sounds like a
very suitable
sensory nightmare.
It is a bit of a sensory nightmare.
I haven't seen it. I haven't watched the movie for a while.
I saw Dune 2 in the cinema, but with a massive flu, and so we're watching the desert landscape, and you want to be immersed, but I'm shivering.
Yeah, right.
I think I was under the aircon.
Oh dear,
wasn't great. What's your favorite movie soundtrack? If you've got one.
I'm going to try and just relate it to what we're talking about in terms of filming live music, and so in that vein, Scott Pilgrim versus the World was a huge inspiration for me musically as well back in the day, and it's a dream. It's a dream, and it's part of doing these kind of doing more music videos and stuff like that. Be that live or otherwise. That's always in the back of my head of that's the goal. I just want to be in a film like that.
100%. Like that. Right before the opening title, when they're in their rehearsal space, just in the front room, and the camera just pans back and keeps going back, and it's an endless room.
It's a gorgeous,
and
gorgeous
eventually
thing.
You do get to the couch that's seemingly 100 meters away.
Yeah.
Do you think they could someone could do another Scott Pilgrim movie, or do you think that's one of the type of movies where that they've done that thing and no one can really.
It also didn't make money, which is.
But also, it's become a cult classic now.
Yeah,
it's one. Yeah,
I would anticipate that there are many people that were young when that movie came out that are now in their starting phase of an artist's career that are going to make that film with that kind of style. But it won't be exactly the same. It won't be like a video game sort of world. It might be I don't know.
Yeah.
VR world. What are the kids
We're probably
do?
going to exit out of the era where the 8-bit aesthetic really hits.
A nostalgia button.
Yeah.
Might be an N64 kind of world.
I think because we're in the PS1 era now, PS1 graphics are in very much so. But once we get to PS2 is already getting slightly too, it loses the, it doesn't have the same
edges.
doesn't it?
triangles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so limited. Like PS1 is still in that era of like we are fighting with this machine to try and get it to do anything. PS2, I think, is slightly getting into the realm of that looks pretty bloody good, and then PS3, PS4. No one's gonna be nostalgic for PS4.
I mean, I bet they were saying that about PS1. I mean, I can't believe like retro camcorders and stuff have made a big comeback in the same way that like Super 8 has been sort of like a nostalgic button for a while.
How do you feel about this in terms of visual styles? Because you use a lot of grain filters and stuff like that in your footage.
Yeah.
Do you find? What's my question with this? Is like because there is a fine line between just leaning into nostalgia porn essentially, and then leaning into an actual visually aesthetic style.
Well, I test a lot of different cameras.
Yep.
So the ones that I like are in my main arsenal. Those are the ones that like I know kind of what they look like. I know what aberrations happen, what mistakes kind of will be baked in.
Aberrations?
Aberrations? Yeah.
What does that mean?
Word. Mistakes.
Oh, okay, right.
It's an editing term.
Okay.
Chromatic aberrations when like the light splits through the sort of Pink Floyd triangle and it becomes different colors.
Gotcha.
Look at us learning on the podcast.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
If you don't learn every day, what are you doing?
Not learning.
Great.
That's it.
There we go.
Yep.
That's my input to the podcast. I can go now.
Excellent.
Anyway,
But in terms of like, leaning into that sort of retro look, that was a part like just sort of seeing what was out there, seeing what other people are doing. They're leaning into this. It's also like a cheap option for me to like increase the amount of sort of angles I can get. And it also kind of came about as like a request from some artists who wanted that style.
Yeah.
I personally just think it looks really cool. Like I love the whole mixed media thing that I get to do.
Yeah.
Because like, it just, I don't know why I like it so much. I think the fact that me as someone who obviously leans into the visual side of anything, the fact that like the same sort of shot, same angle, but from different cameras can produce such different results. And we can sort of play between all those different like high quality and retro quality. That really gives like a sense of like discovery as like the viewer is what I'm imagining.
Sure. Yeah.
So like that Malibu Spacey gig we filmed.
Yep.
There's this retro camera just like getting this perfect side angle shot, and they've got the four singers and they're all like making it into that shot. But then it's like there's this like matrix rain thing that happens when there's like a light going directly onto the sensor.
Oh, right. Okay.
And just cutting to that for like these sort of pop moments after having seen like a great sort of 4K shot.
Yeah.
I just think it really adds like punctuation.
Yeah.
I think that could help with. I saw with when you had your album launch last year, and then I was like, I'll do a reel for Rye too, and then I was like, so I put like a little grainy filter. I'm like, it kind of looks the same. Anyway, but I was just thinking like doing all that kind of effects in the like not overdoing it, but doing it in a really good way. Could kind of like elevate small artists because people. If you scroll them through, you're like, another artist trying to make music, whatever. Yeah. And then it's like, okay. You look at the visuals and you're like, and then you listen. You're sort of more engaged with a small artist because you're like, this actually looks interesting, and this person's put. Obviously they might not know who filmed it, but like, there's been effort put into
that intentional.
Yeah, they're not just an iPhone in the corner. Go and look at this. Look at me. Look at my set, and just
I think it's raw, but in a romantic way, like especially some of the shots from the Malibu Spacey gig. I mean, the main camera has this beautiful glow to it that reminds me of watching bands like Led Zeppelin and stuff like that on stage. It has this very 70s grain to it.
Yeah.
My ego floweth over.
We can stop there.
And that era is myth now. It is this is not. It doesn't even seem tangible anymore. But in this day and age, the fact that we all have cameras and they're all 4K, even the shittiest $200 smartphone is a 4K camera, then to be able to capture that kind of again, this otherworldly, almost romantic, mythological kind of vibe is it makes sense to me why it would be so appealing. And I'm seeing it even in the type of glitches that are being that are really coming onto the scene with artists like JPEG Mafia lean into this a lot. That is, in fact, actually it took me out of it because in his latest video, the last shot is really crispy and really well lit, and it actually took me by surprise. Like that does not feel like JPEG Mafia. He's always got the grainiest camera. One of the top comments was, "It's amazing he finds a shittier camera every single shoot."
Maybe that's what he's trying to do. Maybe he's just
well, it works. It works because I guess if everyone who's an artist can then shoot their own music video on a 4K smartphone,
I'm hoping that he just
loses some edge.
Eventually, he goes and it's just a flip book of him performing.
Oh, that'd be sick.
Probably someone's already done it.
Yeah,
just popsicle sticks.
I once saw a great music video. I think it's for the White Stripes, directed by Michelle Gondry, who's done a bunch of films. And it's just, you know how when you take a shower, the glass will get condensation and stuff. And it's just someone drawing on it. And by the time they finish the drawing, the steam has made it erase. And so they do the next drawing. And it's just telling a story of like a little stick man going on a plane to another country.
That's brilliant.
And it's just
simple, but
no camera movement, just simple.
Yeah.
I don't know why I thought of that, but I'm sharing it now.
You mentioned that you're watching trends come through. You're watching what other people are doing, and you're getting requests from other artists. Are there any trends that you're seeing in the space at the moment that you despise?
Despise?
Yeah.
Yes, we're going with despise, not like you wouldn't do. No, you fucking hate.
Yeah, it's better for the podcast if it's a deep, white hot rage.
I don't know. I guess I'm just not compelled to watch something that I don't particularly like.
Yeah.
It is. I can tell when someone's like an amateur using a camera versus like a professional, particularly with like 360 cameras, where it's just a pretty sort of basic, not the best placement for it, not the best sort of way to edit it to add motion and etc. But I try not to focus on that or even like let it stick in my mind because I just try to be like, you know, if the soil underneath a plant is like 50% crap, it's not going to grow very well. So I'm trying to get rid of that 50% of crap within me. But like on that, like the retro cameras and JPEG Mafia, you do see a bit of a trend of like people trying to outdo each other by like using Otter and Otter cameras to the point where like I once saw a video of someone shooting like a festival with their Nintendo DS or like a Game Boy with a camera attachment and it's green and black.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it gets to a point where you're just like, I don't know, it seems like you're doing, you're not doing it for the artistry. It's more of a just.
It's for your own
what
real.
What weird thing can I just do? I don't know.
I think that's the reason to do it, though.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm someone who has, in terms of in the world of music, started with a lot more physical equipment. And has since stripped that back to I have a digital keyboard. That is the only physical thing I touch. Everything else is a computer. And all my retro flavor and color and sounds, that's all in the box. It's all digital because I think in the audio world, it's especially good now. It sounds fucking amazing. And so like even a guitar amp, I'm in an apartment, so I can't play my guitar loud enough to get the good tone out of a guitar amp anyway. It sounds better in the computer. But the main reason I stick with it is because I work really fast in a computer. And when I see people getting into really weird or janky equipment, like a really bizarre camera or a bizarre synthesizer that is actually just a pain in the ass to use, if they get really excited by that camera, though, if they're excited to go to a festival, like, I'm going to shoot this on a fucking DS. And I'm like, Godspeed, dude. That's fucking stupid. It's so limiting, but cool if you're into it.
Yeah, I think like a healthy amount of experimentation and exploration can lead to results that you're not anticipating.
Yeah.
Even if I'm not going to shoot on a DS, I can appreciate like the goal to just try it.
Oh, yeah.
I think for me, there's a difference between experimenting. Then that reminds me of kind of back in the day when everyone was like, "I'm so random. I do this." I was like, but like if you have to tell people that you're using a DS, to me, I'm like, use a DS and then show us, and then either go, "This is what that." I think that's my thing. Is like, I'm just shooting it because I can. It's like, well, what are you trying to get out of? If you're trying to go for something a certain aesthetic, then that's fine. But if it's just that person over there's got a 4K thing, and I'm just got a DS because I've got all this camera stuff all over, whatever. But I'm using DS right. And I'm like, is it for an actual thing, or is it just because everyone else is doing it with? That's my sort of.
If it's for the end result, then like your heart's in the right place.
Yeah.
I think what you're saying, right? Like if they're excited to use it, and it's for something, I'm like, cool, great.
It's a curious one with like to use PS1 graphics as an example again, because
You were a PlayStation kid, weren't you?
No, I never owned a PlayStation. I was a 64 kid.
Yeah. That's why we're friends.
But among other reasons, hopefully.
We'll talk about that.
Different podcast.
That's after
that's
hours.
That's a Patreon only podcast.
Only cast.
Because I've been trying to learn Blender a little bit for like the third time. And
doing that donut tutorial.
I did the donut. I finished the donut this time. I've tried that 3 times, and this time I finished it. I'm very proud of myself.
Nice.
And I can't remember why I got distracted. I think I've
too much time.
As with everything else, I find a new thing that I'm like, I'm all about 3D for a week, and then I'm all about this for a week.
Hyperfixations.
I don't know where I picked that up from, but I was looking. The reason I got into Blender again just recently was because of this PS1 graphics trend on Instagram, and I found that part of the aesthetic is that the vertices actually like snap to a grid. And so if you're watching a PS1 Let's Play or something like that, there's this kind of jittery nature to it.
Oh, okay.
It's because there's a grid that anytime it moves, or even the camera moves, it has to snap to a grid. And you have to emulate that in Blender. Blender is too smooth. You have to actually go in and add a grid and say, snap the vertices to this grid.
Wow.
And but back in the day, they would have been so angry. Like the people who were making on PS1, it's a limitation. They were like, God damn, I wish this didn't fucking snap to a grid. But now we're like, oh, baby, give me that grid snapper. That's what I'm here for.
Give me that grid snapper.
Yeah, well, Super 8's the same. Is like, you look at Super 8 footage, and if you actually like break it down, you're like, the motion's choppy.
Yeah.
The colors are inconsistent. Like this shirt is like phasing between different greens rather than being like a solid thing. But that's why people love it.
Yeah.
You know? Back in the day, I'm sure they were like, wouldn't it be great to have
Wouldn't it be great if the color stays the same the whole game? Yeah.
And now, like 6 years later, there's just a bunch of young people being like, I fucking love it.
Yeah.
The mistakes are why I love it.
Yeah. Do you think it's better to stick with if you go for the retro equipment angle, then you're locked in. You don't get to fix this in post. This is what you're working with now. So if you shoot on a DS, you're dealing with the DS footage. That is what you've got.
You're dealing with a blank space in the middle.
Yeah, 100%. But if you shoot on a 4K camera and then work in the box to apply filters to get it to look like a DS camera, then if you want to like, okay, this is a bit much, I can dial it back 50%.
Totally.
That's great. I guess
that's why I test cameras and stuff.
Yeah.
I kind of like the all-in.
You like the all-in?
I don't think I wouldn't do it, but I kind of just like someone just going, well, this is what I got, this is what I'm doing, and fingers crossed.
Yeah, I just think of like before digital cameras, all films were made with film celluloid, obviously, and there's no monitor to see what they're doing. They had to film it, send it across the country to a lab, get that sent back so they can watch it 3 days later, and they go, oh, fuck, he's out of focus.
Yeah.
But like that was just the only way they could do it.
Yeah.
So they got really good at loving the commitment to, all right, what we shoot, we have to go with.
Yeah.
Yeah. If they have money, they can reshoot. But
yeah.
And I think there's a bit of magic in that where it's like, we're here to get it now. So let's get it.
That's what we got. That's what you get, and that's what's happening. Yeah.
We've all decided that's what we're doing. We're all happy.
One of my favorite films is Stalker.
I love it.
And that was shot 3 times. I think it was the second time they shot on Kodak 5. I've got a song about it, and now I can't remember the fucking name of that film stock.
Is it 5326?
No, like 5217 or something like that. Doesn't really matter.
There's a huge difference.
I don't know.
Kodak, they shot Star Wars on it. They shot Indiana Jones on it as well. But the Hollywood film processing studios knew what to do with this film stock. The Soviet ones did not, and so they shot the entire film on this film stock. It went to the processing and completely got ruined. And like, oh great, so now we just have to film the entire film again, and we have no budget to do that.
Yeah.
We had to raise a bunch of money again to reshoot it. And apparently the third version of the film is completely different to the second version of that film.
Surprisingly.
You know, if you rewrite something, it gets a little bit different each time.
Yeah.
Imagine doing that for an entire film.
But
That's a great film, though.
it's a great film.
I haven't seen it.
It can be hard to get into.
It's one of those like slow, silent.
Took me a few goes to watch it. But
I'll put it on the list.
I do like the
Tarkovsky.
commitment to the physical because it forces you to just move forward.
Yeah.
If you shot on the 4K, then you can fix kind of everything, and then you can just get lost in this rabbit hole of possibilities, which I think is really
I think
dangerous.
it's also like it forces you to commit to the present moment,
Yeah.
which is also like gigs. Like that's why gigs can be so much more magical than just like listening to something on Spotify.
Yeah.
Because it's in the moment, it's happening before your very eyes.
Yeah.
You have to be present.
Yeah.
Just some
As
background.
the venue that we're recording this in is opening up, that feels maybe an appropriate, appropriate
the
sign.
screeching of the benches.
Yeah.
That's how we know.
Yeah, Matthew, thanks so much for coming on,
Thank you.
hanging out.
Thank you.
Thanks for inviting me to Tones and helping out.
The thank
No
you
worries.
is all for you. You put in so much work into that.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, we feel very privileged that we get to work with you on this project.
Feelings mutual.
We have our Tones videos on the YouTube channel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Watch
season
them.
1 and 2 is up.
3 imminent.
3 is imminent. So keep an eye out.
yeah. Anything else?
Also, watch
that's-
your album launch videos. That was a
Oh
great
yeah,
video.
yeah. Please watch the album launch videos. Those watch those first.
We have
And then again, and again.
We have a Patreon if you want to sign up to that. I don't know,
Yeah.
give us money.
You
Music
get free books on the Patreon. That's
yeah.
updated
Also,
now.
it will be done by now, but tonight is our book launch.
Yes.
So we'll have new poetry. Good
If you
books
sign
by
up for
book.
$10, you get both. Fuck it. Yeah, you get both free books. You get the anthology 1 and 2 of the community poetry book.
Yeah. Music by Sixpence.
Music
Thank
by
you.
Sixpence.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Also, all of his links are in the description.
When Ryan remembers.
I will
Book
remember.
is like a text message, but way longer.